What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. So I was asked a number of times now to give an update on the iShares Global Clean Energy ETF, ticker symbol INRG, and the main reason why I was asked to give an update is due to the drop in share price over the last few days. So the way we'll structure today's video is I'll give a very brief overview of this iShares Global Clean Energy ETF if you are not aware already. We'll look at the current share price and my overall position. We'll then look at the reasons why this ETF has dropped over the last few weeks, and finally we'll give my 2 cents on what I'm doing going forward with this ETF. And with all that being said, let's dive right into today's video. So as the name suggests, this ETF tracks 30 of the biggest clean energy stocks around the globe. Now, the reason I like this ETF is because, just like the electric vehicle sector, that there is a lot of kind of subsectors, and in clean energy in particular, that is no different. For example, there's solar, wind, just to name two, there's hydro, there's a lot of others as well. So it's kind of handy, in my opinion, to have an ETF to encompass all the different subsectors within this ETF. I've already made quite detailed videos within this ETF already that I'll link in the description below. So the purpose of today's video really is to address the fact that the company or the ETF has dropped over the last few weeks. But just firstly, we can see the top companies here are holdings that this ETF holds, and the top one being Plug Power. Now we're going to discuss Plug Power in more detail later on in the video, but we can see a fairly good overview of the top holdings within the iShares Global Clean Energy ETF. In my opinion, the clean energy sector is certainly in its infant stage, so there's a lot of potential going forward and growth. But because it's still in its infant stage, there's a lot of kind of trial and error, and that's one of the main reasons why I like holding an ETF, because you kind of reduce your risk drastically by having your kind of hands in all different baskets within the certain sector that is clean energy. But not just the companies alone, we also have a geographical diversification that we can see on screen here. For example, the top holdings are within the US, 35%, within the likes of China, New Zealand, Denmark, Spain, Canada, just to name but a few. But that's definitely one of the pros for holding this ETF. At the moment, I have about 20 shares in INRG on the London Stock Exchange. Now, it's worth noting that you can get this ETF in all different currencies, such as Euro and USD as well. But because I'm trading 2 and 2, it's on the London Stock Exchange. So that's the reason why I'm using this ETF in the London Stock Exchange. So at the moment, we can see here that the dotted line is my average price. Now, we have been doing quite well at the start. We were up to about £13.85, or pence, should I say. But since then, it has had a bit of a nosedive over the last few weeks, and we can see now that it's currently trading at just under £9.80. And the main premise why I've made this video is because a lot of people have been kind of concerned of the drop in price. But if we can see on the 1 week chart, if we click on the screen here, on the 1 week chart, they're down about 6.3% over the last week, and has dropped down to about £9.80 as I suggested. Now, seeing this on any graph doesn't look good for anyone, to be honest. The 7% looks fairly severe on the 1 week chart. However, you need to realize if you're invested in ETFs such as clean energy, that it's for the long term, and you need to look at longer than the 1 week, even the 1 month. 3 months, we can see it looks a small bit better. However, when you go to the 1 year, you can see that it's doing up 127% since this time last year. So I really do feel that people need to look at the longer term graphs to kind of get an overall picture on how an ETF is performing. Sure, over the last week or so, it has dropped 6 to 7%. However, if you look at the line, even where it is right now, it's still miles ahead of where it was this time last year. So there's been a few reasons for the kind of rapid incline and also rapid decline over the last few months. The kind of incline has got to do with such things as Biden becoming the new president of the US and kind of promising for a more clean energy kind of environment going forward. So that's obviously huge news for every company within the sector. And we also have reasons why it's going up as well, as such as this is the way forward. Like we've seen in prior videos that 2 other kind of energy companies that I hold, Chevron and ExxonMobil, are both up about 50 to 75%. Now they're the kind of old school energy stocks, and in my opinion, over the next 5 to 10 years, they will start to kind of peter off as such. And I do feel that clean energy will start leading the way. Like it's inevitable, it's going to happen. We can even see it within the electric vehicle sector as well. And in terms of 2 reasons why it's kind of rapidly declining, and again, probably rapidly declining is probably a bit of an over exaggeration. It's only down about 6 to 8% at the moment. So probably the 2 reasons would be, firstly, the overall economic conditions. Now, over the last few weeks, the markets across the board have been going down, although over the last few days, they have kind of having signs of a bull market, so we might see a bit of a reversal and a bit of an uptrend over the next few days. But the second reason, and probably the more important reason, is the scenarios with Plug Power that we're going to suggest right now. So as we saw earlier in the video, Plug Power was this ETF's main holding. Now there was 30 overall holdings within this ETF, but again, as you can imagine, if the top holding within the ETF suffers or falls, then the overall ETF will kind of follow its direction. Now that is one of the benefits as well of holding this ETF, is because going forward, a lot of these stocks, albeit for accounting errors or indifferent, will be going up and down in value. So that's one of the best things about this ETF, that if one falls, usually another rises. So it does help you protect, like it is a protection against ignorance, I guess, because a lot of these new clean energy style stocks are new to a lot of people. So we can see here the Plug Power on the left is a hydrogen fuel company, and it has dropped about 11% yesterday and the day before. And the main reason for that is accounting errors over the last few years, which resulted in big sell-offs. Now, it's worth noting that when any fundamentals within a company changes, that obviously gives investors a lot of panic, and rightly so. However, the fundamentals of Plug Power have not changed, but it's worth stressing as well that their performance metrics might have due to this fund accounting error. So it's definitely worth noting going forward that their overall performance mightn't have been doing as well as we thought. So Plug Power is probably the main reason why this overall ETF has dropped about 6 to 8% over the last week or so. And Plug Power is down about 11% as I stated as well. Now, it's worth noting that that wasn't the only reason. There has been a bit of a sell-off as well in clean energy, but again, that's always going to happen. It's markets are cyclical, but in my opinion, if you buy on the dip, and in the long term, these kind of clean energy style ETFs are going to be of great importance. It's not just this ETF alone that has kind of suffered within this overall sector in clean energy. The Motley Fool has made a very good point in terms of 3 points of why overall the last few weeks that the clean energy has kind of dropped in value. And the 3 of these are firstly interest rates. We can see that because their interest rates rise, that results in fewer developments and lower growth. Again, as clean energy is expansion and it's kind of in its infant stage, it needs kind of cheap or low interest rates to continue. We can see earnings expectations here as well, has another good factor that a lot of analysts believed that the earnings would be a bit higher in these clean energy style stocks. And thirdly, another factor that I mentioned earlier was that oil and gas are now in favor. But again, in my opinion, this is all short-term kind of drawbacks, in particular the third point here, the oil and gas, because long-term it is inevitable that these older school style companies such as Chevron and ExxonMobil, that I currently am up about an average 60% between the two, are kind of going to fall away in my opinion, and clean energy will certainly take the way. With all that being said, that kind of brings the end to today's video. I just wanted to give a brief update because it was requested by a few subscribers that I give my kind of 2 cents on the current situation with this Global Clean Energy ETF. So we went through the overall brief summary of what encompasses this ETF. We had a look at the reasons why there has been a drop over the last few weeks. And finally, we kind of gave my opinion that, again, this is only one of 30 stocks within the overall ETF. And if you can get in a dollar cost average and buy on the dip, it's gonna long term this will pay off in my opinion. And again, I'm not a financial advisor, so you need to do your own due diligence as well before investing any of your hard-earned money. But in my opinion, if you slowly trickle funds into these style ETFs, just like any stock I do within this portfolio, again, if you have, let's say, €1,000 on the sideline to invest, do not invest all 1,000 at once. You need to trickle feed the money in small kind of segments, because consistency is key. And like, for example, if you put the 1,000 right now, it could still drop another 5% or 10%, and then you have no further capital dollar cost average. So it's imperative that you only invest small chunks at any given time, as in my opinion, consistency is key in long-term investing. If you found this video anyway helpful or entertaining, it'd be much appreciated as always if you're new around here to consider subscribing to the channel, as we're now on 1,113 subscribers. So thanks very much to every single person that has already subscribed. And if you have any questions, comments, queries or suggestions, please don't hesitate to comment below, and I'll be sure to get back to you as quick as I can. Thanks very much, enjoy your Thursday, and I will see y'all in tomorrow's video.